Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Smash JT. I'm back with another top 10. This time it's the top 10 regular NES games ever created. Before I get to that, I just want to say thank you guys so much if you're a recent subscriber. Thank you, it means so much to me, and all the comments you guys are making really makes a big impact on me, so I really appreciate everything. So keep in mind, guys, before I go through all these, this is my top 10, and just like the top 10 N64 games, and just like the top anything I'm ever going to do, this is my personal top list, so yours is most likely going to vary quite widely from mine. But with that in mind, with number 10, I'm going with Track and Field 2 by Konami. This game was way ahead of its time for all the events you could do in it, and how accurate everything was in it. I mean, I know these are all for the original Nintendo, but you're going to hear me say, this is way ahead of its time a lot, because these are the top 10 games for one of the most amazing systems ever created. And as far as multiplayer experiences go, I know a lot of people, when they think of Nintendo, they think of Contra and Gauntlet and Bubble Bobble and Marble Madness, but they don't really think of Track and Field 2, and to me this is probably the best multiplayer experience on the NES. Track and Field 2 was released on the NES in 1988, and it continued the Olympic-themed sports events that they had in the first one. However, in this game, it boasted 15 sporting events, with 2 of them available as bonus stages. As with most Track and Field games, this required the player to rapidly tap the A button as fast as they could, and then releasing the B button to do the move. And of course, with this type of game mode, it creates hysterical videos and lots of fun between players. And a couple quick fascinating tidbits about this game. The game had a password feature allowing the player to continue playing from their last position at another time, and the gunfiring exhibition event could be played with either the controller or the NES Zapper, which was really mind-blowing for the time. Alright, now moving along to number 9 on my top 10 games ever created for the original NES, Final Fantasy, the original one. Now, speaking of games that were way ahead of their time, the original Final Fantasy set the standard for what the modern role-playing game was. Final Fantasy is a fantasy role-playing game developed and published by Square in 1987. The story follows 4 youths called the Light Warriors, who each carry one of the world's 4 elemental orbs, which have been darkened by the 4 elemental fiends. Together, they quest to defeat the evil forces, restore the light orbs, and save the world. The original Final Fantasy was originally conceived under the working title Fighting Fantasy, but due to trademark issues and dire circumstances surrounding Square, they changed the name to Final Fantasy. Contrary to popular belief and the myth that they called it Final Fantasy because Square was going bankrupt at the time, that's just not true. And while an incredible game for the time, it's not without its shortcomings. The battles can be long and drawn out, and if one of your allies attacks a monster that's already been defeated by another ally, they're just going to attack nothing and waste a turn. It's very rough around the edges, but still a lot of fun. And moving along to number 8 on my top 10 NES games ever created, I'm going with Solomon's Key by Tecmo. This game was one of my favorite puzzle platformer games ever created, and I played the hell out of it when I was growing up as a kid. Solomon's Key is generally recognized as being one of the most challenging games on the NES. The player, controlling a sorcerer known as Dana, must overcome unlimited enemy spawning, challenging level designs, a countdown timer, instant death from any physical contact with enemies, and limited ways to dispatch of enemies. In addition, it was easy for players to unintentionally render levels unwinnable while playing them. There is no saving, so if all lives are lost at level 49, the game has to be restarted from the beginning. So I guess you could say it's a really hard game, and I just love challenges. And interesting side note, in 1993, a prequel was released for the NES named Fire and Ice in North America, and it's called Solomon's Key 2 elsewhere. And for number 7, I'm going with Mega Man 2, my favorite Mega Man ever created. It's got the best levels, the best end bosses, the best weapons you can get. It was a lot of fun, a great variety, and just an overall incredible experience to play it. Mega Man 2, known as Rockman 2 in Japan, came out in America in 1988. Although sales for the original Mega Man were unimpressive, Capcom allowed the Rockman team to create the sequel. They worked concurrently on other Capcom projects as well, and in their free time would go back to working on Mega Man 2. With more than 1.5 million copies sold, it's the best-selling Mega Man game to date. And moving on to number 6 on my list, I'm going with the original Metroid. Reasons I love this game are not just the great atmospheric music in it, but it's also the expansive adventure that seemed to go on forever. And again, way ahead of its time. The first entry in the Metroid series, Metroid is an action-adventure video game released in August of 1987 in North America. Set on the planet Zebes, or Zebes, I don't know how to say it. The story follows Samus Aran as she attempts to retrieve the parasitic Metroid organisms that were stolen by space pirates, who plan to replicate the Metroids by exposing them to beta rays and then use them as biological weapons to destroy Samus and all who oppose them. Wow, I never realized how deep this game was. Metroid was lauded for being one of the first video games to feature a female protagonist, though the player must complete the game in under 5 hours for that secret to be revealed. Even the game's English language instruction manual used the word he to refer to the protagonist, apparently to keep it a secret. And for number 5 on my list, I'm going with Castlevania 3, Draculas Curse. This game took everything the original Castlevania did and made it 10 times better. With the power-up abilities, the ability to change characters throughout the adventure, the ability to go through different levels and take different paths was unheard of back then. Dracula's Curse was released in North America in 1990, and it was a prequel to the original Castlevania. Castlevania 3 abandoned the action-adventure game and role-playing game elements that were found in the immediate predecessor of Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, and returns to a platform game roots as in the first Castlevania. Unlike Castlevania, however, Castlevania 3 is non-linear. Trevor, the main character, can be assisted by one of 3 possible assistant characters, and after completing the first level and several other points through the game, the player is given a choice of 2 branching paths to follow. And I actually did a playthrough on this on my channel, but this game was so much fun and balanced challenge difficulty with cheap shots a lot better than the other Castlevanias. And for number 4, I'm going with the undisputed champion of puzzle games ever created, the original Tetris. Tetris was the first entertainment software to ever be exported from the USSR to the US. The game, or one of its many variants, is available for nearly every game console ever created, as well as on devices such as graphing calculators, mobile phones, portable media devices. Anything you can think of, there's a Tetris for it. And after a long legal battle, Nintendo was able to secure the rights for Tetris before launching the Game Boy in 1989, and that exploded with sales because of it. Alright, we're down to the top 3, and ironically, my Nintendo 64 top 3, number 3 was Ocarina of Time, and for the NES top 10, my number 3 is the original Legend of Zelda. This game really set the standard for what an epic adventure on a console could be like. Created by Shigeru Miyamoto, the same guy that created Donkey Kong and Mario and everything else, Metroid, Kid Icarus, I mean, you name it, this guy started everything back in the day. The series centers around Link, and look, if you don't know what Zelda is by now, I can't really help you. What I will say is that the original Legend of Zelda was principally inspired by Shigeru Miyamoto's explorations as a young boy in the hillsides and the forests and caves surrounding his childhood house, and that's where he got the idea for it. And also, according to Wikipedia, Link and the fairy were both inspired by Peter Pan and Tinkerbell. I never knew that. And for number 2, I'm going with one of the best-selling games ever made throughout history, Super Mario Bros. 3.
Super Mario Brothers 3!
Super Mario Bros. 3 was released on February 12, 1990 in the US, and it centers around Mario and Luigi trying to save Princess Toadstool. It is often acclaimed by critics as one of the greatest video games ever created, and it was a commercial success upon release, which was partially influenced by the promotion film 1989's The Wizard. It's the 3rd best-selling NES game of all time, having sold over 17 million copies worldwide. In case you're wondering, the number 1 selling was Super Mario Bros. At 40 million, and Duck Hunt had 28 million, both of those because they were pack-in titles with the Nintendo Entertainment System. So in reality, not counting a pack-in game, this is the best-selling game on the NES of all time. Alright, I'm down to number 1 on my list, and this was insanely hard to do, guys. I don't know how familiar you are with the NES library, but I was going through my catalog, trying to figure out what my top 10 were, and flipping through all the carts, and I was like, this is damn near impossible. With amazing games like Kirby's Adventure, Contra, Castlevania, Bubble Bobble, DuckTales, Excitebike, Double Dragon, Super Mario Bros., Rygar, Karnov, Russian Attack, Ghosts and Goblins, Gradius, Tecmo Bowl, Little Nemo's Dream Master, Master Blaster, Bomberman, Gunsmoke, Mega Man, Mega Man 3. The list literally goes on forever. There are 3 titles I want to recognize individually, just real quick, as 3 that were really tough to cut from my top 10, but are amazing games in their own right. And the first one's the original Kid Icarus game. This game was an epic adventure through a ton of different worlds with lots of different equipment and various enemies to fight throughout. It's a big adventure and very challenging, something that's lost a lot of times these days. My next honorable mention I want to talk about is Rygar. This is one of the few games that I can remember that was actually better on the console than it was in the arcade. And that's saying something for the 80s. And speaking of hard, this game was what they define as Nintendo hard. You start off with 3 life bars, and when you die, you die. There's no continue, there's no save, there's nothing. I remember there were days where we'd just leave our Nintendo on overnight just to continue playing it. I don't know how they ever figured someone would ever beat this game. It's impossible. And for my final honorable mention, I gotta talk about the original Mario Bros. This thing was so incredibly good when it came out and it debuted with the system. It's what put Nintendo on the video game map. And if you're watching this, chances are you've played the hell out of this game already, so there's not too much more I really need to say about it, but I definitely want to at least recognize it. Alright, so now I'm finally getting to my #1 NES game ever created. And this is not a joke. This is serious, and you're probably not going to guess this, but my favorite original Nintendo game ever made is Maniac Mansion. Have you ever played Maniac Mansion? Because if you haven't, don't knock it till you try it. It was so different from what I was accustomed to. I mean, yeah, it was a point-and-click adventure, and that sounds super lame, but it was like a story being told while you played the game, and it was very interactive and beyond anything I'd ever played at that point in my life. Along with a crazy storyline with different paths you can take and different choices to make throughout the game, the soundtrack was insanely good. I remember renting this game like every weekend when I was growing up. On the box it would say, "Catch the TV show on Family Channel." It even says it on the cart. I don't know if you can see that. But I remember looking through my TV guide and not being able to find it, and I was like, I really want to watch the TV show that's based off this game because I love this game so much and I could never find it. And then I look online and I can't even find it now. Have any of you guys even seen the Maniac Mansion TV show? Did it ever even exist? But I digress. Anyways, that's my top 10 games for the NES. I don't know, you guys probably definitely don't agree with it or have a completely different top 10, and like every top 10 list, that's gonna be the case. So don't get mad at me that your list varies completely from what mine was, but I'd be interested to hear what you guys think your top 10 are, or if you're too lazy to do that, at least give me your favorite NES game ever created. And as always, if you guys appreciated this episode, make sure you click that thumbs up and subscribe for more future episodes from me. Thanks so much. I'll see you later. Hey, are you still there? Well, if you haven't already, make sure you click the subscribe button above me and check out my other videos on each side here. Thanks so much, guys. Have a good one.